Mystical monsters and yokai are one of the most terrifying entities in the whole series. From some of the most powerful like Turbo Granny to some of the more weak ones like Black Haircutter. There are multiple in which rank differently from the feats they have shown, and while there are still some that have yet to be shown, this is what we have so far as of the series. There will be 3 categories in how I rank them. The first is the characters that have no feats, no statements, no showings. We've only seen them once, maybe twice. They haven't shown much. The next tier is the tier that we've seen them, but they lost, and there's a gap between them. And of course, the top tiers are the ones that took a lot to defeat, and are some that are very powerful in comparison to the ones down below. And there is a giant gap between all of them because earlier on we saw how some of them lost and how others are much stronger than those ones at the very beginning. But before I do that, I would appreciate if you guys like and subscribe for more anime, manga, and general fictional content. And with that, I hope you all enjoy. The first category are characters that were easily defeated by Count Saint Germain, or maybe not easily, but we have seen that they were defeated by Count Saint Germain, and the feats have not been impressive as of yet. Number 11 is Black Haircutter, a yokai that we've seen once being used only one time by Count Saint Germain, but from the looks of it is not very powerful. The most we've seen it do is amplify the power of Count Saint Germain's blade more than it was originally. Unfortunately for Black Haircutter, we don't have a statement that says how much higher of an amp it got, nor do we have anything that it did specifically for the sword. All we know is that it amplified his weapon, but we don't know by how much, which is why he has to go in the bottom of the list. At number 10, it is Water Tiger, a powerful yokai, or assumably powerful yokai, that got defeated by Count Saint Germain, and just like the last one, he activates it by touching his blade, and it does something to him where if he lands, he can crack surfaces. And unlike the other that just showed a nice design when he attacks, this one actually did a small thing, which is just crack some surfaces on the earth and did something more than the one previously, which is why I have to rank him a little bit higher, even though he has no statements, he has no feats as well. Number 9 goes to Jumping Crow. The reason I have it this high is because we're about to see what it's capable of, as it was given to Hase, the recent antagonist of this arc, and someone who has been hating on Ken Takakura since the beginning of the arc, because he was definitely defeated multiple times throughout this arc by Ken's base form and a lot of different exercises, which is why he was given this ability to fight back against Ken and make sure that he gets revenge on the puny nerd that took everything from him, quote unquote, of course. Either way, we still have no feats, so I can't put it any higher, but it definitely is higher than the other two for now, as we have seen recent feats of a fight against Ken and Kenta, but at the same time, this is just armored Kenta and base Ken versus the two of them, and he hasn't just really won by himself, really. It's been a little bit of a challenge, so of course I can't put him really that high anyways. Not only this, but this is also a fusion, which we know that fusions are a huge amp in the series, as it makes people stronger from their base form, and we don't know how much weaker it is without Hase. Now those are all the ones that we have no feats, no statements, no nothing of their base yokai forms. For these next two, they are prominent characters that we see throughout the story. At number 8, it is everyone's favorite mama, Akurosuke. The reason why she's so low is because she lost to Season 1 Ken and Momo. This is a Season 1 Ken and Momo that have not gone under their training to make them strong enough to fight against the Space Globalist arc, or specifically the Kerr in this arc. This training made them be able to fight back against them, as in the beginning of the arc, Ken got jumped and completely destroyed. And in the end of the arc, Ken was able to fight against Exosuit Kerr and beat her without much difficulty, and then not only beat her but defeat the other Kerr without much issue at all. Now they didn't really win the war, as there's a feat in the same arc that we will go over later on, but the fact that Akurosuke lost to Season 1 Ken and Momo, a Ken and Momo that haven't been training and nothing, and while she didn't necessarily lose, she wasn't able to kill this Ken and Momo. every other character on top, I do believe, would have killed these two in the same moment if they switched scenarios. So I can't really put her any much higher because she was slower than Ken and Momo without training. She got trapped by them and she didn't really do any damage to them. The only damage she did was kill Ira for the moment, but of course she had the true fusion, and I have went over that in a past video. But I can't put her any higher, and so she is number 8. Number 7 is Evil Eye. Evil Eye is a character that we didn't really see do much as a yokai in base form, but from what he was able to do to Gigi and what the terrifying implications he could have done to Ken in the same arc as well, it shows us that he is at least higher than Acro Silky. Now, is there a gap between them? I don't really think so. I do think that he beats Acro Silky because if you look at his eye, he begins to control you completely. It doesn't matter if it was Ken or if it was Gigi. Now, normally, if he looks at an eye, he just kills his opponent. It doesn't matter. But he likes Gigi, which is why he took over Gigi's body. And this is more of territory that will go on in Season 2. So if you haven't seen Season 2, please go on and stop watching this video. I know I talked about Yokai from the very beginning. Those are spoiler territories as well, but they haven't shown anything, which is why I talked about them briefly, as they haven't shown any feats. But for the feats that we have seen from Evil Eye, all we know is that he would have killed Ken if Ken looked into his eyes, and luckily enough, Gigi was the one that looked into it, and he took Gigi's body. Outside of this, we saw that Ken beat him in a one-on-one because of Turbo Granny's powers. Again, he's learned more than the first fight that he had against Acro Silky, and he's developed to become a stronger character. This is why he's number 7. I can't put him any higher as he lost to a Season 2 Ken Takakura, one who hasn't had his training yet, but one that's also stronger than the one that fought against Acro Silky. Now, this is where the gap begins, as there is a genuine gap between the top 6 and the other 2. Now, there is a gap between the top 4 and 5 and 6, but the gap between 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 is so massive that I had to make this gap here. Number 6 goes to Busumon, a yokai that was not defeated by Ken, not defeated by Momo, but it was a power-up that happened with Rin in order for her to defeat Busuru. Busuru was a yokai that was made because Rin assumed that she was the reason her friend died, as her friend died in a tragic car accident. This car accident made her into a yokai because she died in such a tragic way, couldn't form in the afterlife. And so after Rin did what the yokai wanted, and that was becoming an idol again, that is when Busumon was defeated and became another yokai in Mai Kuwabanga. Mai Kuwabanga is a part of a fusion, so I won't be going over her since this is not a fusion ranking, but from what we have seen, she is very powerful and she is able to manipulate situations in her favor and take people from one dimension to another with her abilities. Now, of course, this was in fusion form, but it is nice to keep this noted as she has had some pretty good feats throughout the series. But can I get her any higher? I can't, unfortunately. So this form on Busumon is number 6. Number 5 is Umbrella Boy. Umbrella Boy is this high because he was able to terrify Ken Takakura and Momo, as well as most of the other characters in Dandadan at the time in this small dimension because of how powerful it was. As you can see, there is another villain here, but I won't be going over him just yet. But he was able to unlock the full power of Umbrella Boy. And while Zuma already had the fusion, this was the part of the fusion that was early on with Ken, where he wasn't able to control it, and it was more the yokai than it was the person. Which is why I'm gonna keep him up here, as he was able to not only terrify everyone, but be able to push everyone to a certain extent. And the reason it was defeated was because Zuma had a talk with it and realized that it is part of himself, as Umbrella Boy is the brother that passed away in his family and one that has always held him back. Now, while it did have a lot of great feats in this arc, it was underappreciated because of the villain of this arc. And while it is stronger than Ombudsman, it can't go any higher than what it is right here. So Umbrella Boy is number 5. Now there's a gap between the top 4 and everyone else, as these top 4 are late game guys, or if they were defeated by someone that is a late game character, and that took time and pushed them in order to defeat them. And number 4 is the Hokkaido Yokai. A yokai that you might be confused, what is this thing? Well, in the Space Globalist arc, there was a training arc in between that all the characters had to endure to become a stronger person. And in this arc, there was someone missing. Granny Seiko. Granny Seiko is one of the top tiers in the verse. And you know what she was doing in this arc? She was fighting against Hokkaido Yokai. Not only was she fighting against Hokkaido Yokai, but it took her a long time in order to defeat this guy. Keep in mind, these guys were training for days. And yet, she couldn't come back and save them because she was in the middle of the fight that took multiple days to defeat. As we see at the end of the Space Globalist arc, that's when she defeats Hokkaido Yokai. This makes this thing at least a top 4 for now, and while I do think it's gonna get outplaced by other yokais in the future, it was definitely impressive to see. Fairy Tail Card is another yokai that seems to be defeated by a top tier, as we didn't know it yet, but Count Saint Germain was the main reason this thing was defeated. If it wasn't for Count Saint Germain, this thing would have defeated the whole crew without much difficulty at all. Keep in mind, this is the same crew that had the training for the Space Globalist arc, so this was after the training and they couldn't do much to it. The only reason they won was because Count Saint Germain was there, and Count Saint Germain was able to counter his abilities, as he's able to remove certain body parts from you and make you fight without them. And for Count Saint Germain, that didn't matter. He beat him anyways. But of course, he lost to a top tier, so I can't put him any lower, as he was a threatening villain. He defeated the main cast basically because the main cast couldn't do anything to him. It was just Count Saint Germain. So Fairy Tail Card is number 3. Now, the top 2 are fairly close. I can hear arguments for either or, as we do know that we don't know the true extent of either's abilities. We just got statements that makes one over the other. With that being said, I have Turbo Granny on number 2. Turbo Granny is a character that we don't have many feats of, but we do got statements of her being very powerful, as Granny Seiko had called her one of the more dangerous yokais in this world, and that she didn't want her to defeat or take the time to defeat because it will not only take time, but it will be very difficult. Now, the reason she's not higher is because of that statement. Granny Seiko believes that she can defeat Turbo Granny, and with the person at number 1, she can't say the same thing, which is why she has to be at 2. Anyways, Turbo Granny was telling Ken throughout all these arcs that he's using barely any bit of her power because of how much powerful she is than everyone else. And while at first you can think that's kind of crazy, the more you look at the statements that are being told, the more you actually believe that she's very powerful and will be one of the top tiers at the end of the series. And so she has to be stuck at 2. And at number 1, with not many people surprised, Reiko Mashima, a yokai that not even Turbo Granny can defeat. This is a yokai that was stated that Turbo Granny can't defeat. This is very impressive because Turbo Granny is one of the top tiers in the verse. Not only this, but she also proved it as well, because in the Space Globalist arc, she was able to punch the Cur out of existence, defeating a whole alien platoon that was going to destroy the entire world and make the macrocosm their own. Reiko was so powerful that she defeated this planetary level threat by just punching them thousands of times. And while I don't think there's many planetary characters in this series, Reiko Mashima is definitely one of them. I do think it's only between 3, her, Granny Seiko, and Count Saint Germain, or if not Granny Seiko, then at least Turbo Granny. so maybe 3 or 4, but she has shown us the ability that she is so much more than everyone else, and that is why she's so high. That is why I have her my number 1 in this list, and probably number 1 for the rest of the series. So this is the Yokais ranked, weakest to strongest for now. If there's more Yokais introduced, I will make a video at the end when every Yokai has been shown, but for right now, this is the list.